Well, we'll just jump into it then. And Ben, we'll start with yourself. I guess a good place to start would be around the director of football role that you mentioned at Hibs. You've been in the role nearly 2 years, Ben, and one of your first moves was to get rid of the director of football and choose to operate without one. So I guess my first question is, why are we now, a year and a half later, going to be changing a system that you implemented to bring one back in?
I mean, technically, it's not accurate in terms of I removed a sporting director. When I first came into the club, I think the remit very much was come in. I came in the August, if you remember, and the difficulties that Graham had with Jack Ross was quite well documented internally anyway, not externally perhaps. So I think it would be harsh to say, I may have been the person that had to do the job in removing, but I don't think that could be laid at my door in terms of removing a sporting director that I barely knew for about 20 days. And I think Graham would be the first person to say the manner in which I did that has left us to speak quite warmly of each other since. So I certainly have no qualms around Graham and the job that he either did or didn't do at Hibs, because I wasn't here for long enough to make a judgment on that. So I think it's probably a little misguided to say I did that to then reverse the decision. I think it's a collective decision-making process at every club. You have an owner, you have a board of directors, you have senior leadership team, i.e. staff-wise. So the CEO doesn't make all of the decisions, like a CEO doesn't make all of the decisions at any club. Ultimately, it's a sense of direction and a structure that you put in place, and then you surround yourself with excellent people with really strong skill sets to ensure that you can be the best club that you can be. So with that in mind, I believe if you look at the last two windows, because I don't believe that I can be classed with having that window that you're referring to where Graham left. If you look at the January window, then you look at the summer window. I think in general, despite kind of the signings of Rocky Bashiri, David Marshall, and then there are others as well, obviously with in the summer window. I think it's fair to say that more football nous is probably needed at the football club. And as a result of that, whilst it's probably taken a little bit too long to finally get to that decision-making process around, right, we need a director of football. I think what is important is that once we made that in following the summer window, we put that process in place to get the right candidate brief. And then we went out with that early January, knowing full well that the month of January that we've just had was going to be pivotal, with Lee very firmly with his feet under the table, knowing and understanding what we wanted to do. The pause button was always going to be pressed on that recruitment process, but it was out there. So what we did is we accepted applicants and interested parties during that period of time, which we've kept pretty close to our chest. We did the work that we needed to do in January. We've prepared ourselves properly so we can now fully focus, of which Lee and obviously the board of directors are now fully across that process, and it will begin, if it hasn't already, as it has, in earnest. And the view is that we can bring in a football structure that helps support Lee and support the ambitions that the football club has on the sporting side, because clearly the ambitions off the pitch have already been kind of hit in many ways. And what you want is both sides of the fence to work in tandem and to be successful, because when you get a really good club operating off the pitch with revenues being driven and a really successful club on it, then some amazing things can happen. And I'm sure, and I'm hoping that we'll see that at Hibs in the future. But we did need a tweak and a change in the structure to ensure that we got that football kind of nous in there.
No, that's good. And if you don't mind me asking, feel free not to answer this one, but how far along the process are we of finding a new one? Do you think we'll have that in before the start of next season, or is it going to take a little bit longer than that? Because in your interview, you said we need to take time to get this one right. So how far along are we in the process?
Yeah, so it's very simple. We're on long list stage at the moment. So Lee and I have got full sight of that. And we'll be meeting with potential candidates and bringing that to a shortlist stage, which the board will obviously be very heavily involved in, as well as the owner. And yeah, we want that person to be in post as soon as possible, but definitely before the start of next season, because there's a lot of planning that needs to be done with the great work that we've done in January to ensure that we've got the best opportunity to be successful come the summer.